What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Odin coming back with a box office breakdown video for this past weekend, which saw the release of Halloween Ends, which, as of this weekend, yes, it's opening, it has already made its money back and is now making profit. We'll talk about that, and we'll also give a follow-up to movies like Smile, La La Crocodile, Woman King, and Don't Worry, Darling, and we'll go ahead and jump into those numbers right now. Halloween Ends, though, is very, very impressive as far as its box office is concerned. The movie, not really as much, though I will say it is better than Halloween Kills. Anything really could be better than Halloween Kills in comparison. Halloween Ends overall is just not that satisfying of a conclusion of the actual story that was being told. This is clearly, connected to the original Halloween film from back in the 1970s, and it just doesn't really feel, it doesn't feel like a really good conclusion. That all being said, the money speaks for itself, the numbers speak for themselves, and $58.4 million means that this film has been able to make its money back, which is pretty easy because the Halloween films tend to cost somewhere between $10 and $20 million, and so it just needs to basically be able to, double it, just a little bit more than double that amount of money for its production budget to make its money back. So the fact that even though this is getting a day-and-date release on Peacock and also in theaters, I was able to watch it on Peacock myself, the fact that it is already still making its money back and is likely going to make a pretty decent amount of profit to boot is still impressive for it nonetheless, even if the film isn't all that good. The movie Smile continues to hang around, doing very, very well, as you can see, well outperforming the actual, box office projections coming from thenumbers.com based off of its opening and based off of its drop-offs that we're seeing early on. But right now it's at $137.5 million worldwide, so very, very impressive numbers that are there. Not nearly as impressive are the numbers for La La Crocodile, which is now at $26.6 million, and based off of the budget for this movie and the projections that I'm making on it, it's looking like this film is going to be a box office flop. What still remains to be seen as far as whether it will be a flop or not is The Woman King. As I keep saying every single weekend, the film has yet to be released in certain countries, and every single week, as it gets released in more areas, it starts to get a little bit higher in that international number. So even though the domestic number, while having strong drops from week to week, though that is still happening, it is also gaining some traction from the international market as well. Right now, it's up to $76.5 million, and so from where it was last week, which was around negative $40 million, now it's in the negative $20 million range. It's actually almost more than doubled its entire box office compared to the first 2 weeks of its release. And so this film is clearly doing well, again, day to day, as far as weekend to weekend here domestically. People are continuing to buy the propaganda surrounding this film and supporting this movie. And internationally, there is enough money flowing in where the chance of it making its money back is still there, though as every week passes and every country that it has yet to be released in continues to have decent numbers and not amazing numbers, the film continues to, again, I think leaning more towards it losing money, but I can't say that outright because of the fact it is having this very slow growth over time because of its slow release internationally. Amsterdam, we can absolutely say at this point in time, will be a major box office flop. In fact, this film could end up losing $100 million when all is said and done, as it's only made $18.4 million after 2 weeks, and this film cost around $80 million to actually make. So not a very good look for this movie, which once again shows you that you can't just put a bunch of names on a poster and expect people to show up to it. You have to be able to sell them on a movie. I've actually not seen a single trailer for Amsterdam. Even though I like a lot of the actors and actresses that they've mentioned here on this poster, it doesn't tell me anything about the movie, and so I have then no desire to actually go and see it. So it's interesting to say the very least that this movie is set to be a box office flop, and could have happened to a nicer group of people, especially some of the names on there, because I like some of those names. Some of the other names on there, I think, could probably use a little bit of a wake-up call. Coming from 20th Century Studios, which is a Disney-run production, just makes it even that much more sweeter. The movie Don't Worry, Darling, this film also continuing to hang around, though it is not going to be a massive moneymaker. It is still making enough week to week to where it breaking even is still very much on the table. I've had a couple people mention in comment sections saying, you're totally wrong about this movie. It's like, look, I haven't seen the movie, so I can't say the film is good or bad. All I can do is look at the numbers and say, hey, the numbers are indicating that it still has yet enough traction, or just enough traction, to be able to get its money back. I'm not saying that it will, but I'm saying that the chance of it doing so is actually a lot higher than what some might actually expect it to. So we'll look at the charting on that and show why I think that is still the case, because it does not have that much money to make left at this point to hit its break even. It's within about $5 million or so, a striking distance of its break even point. The film Barbarian continuing to hang around as well. It's pretty much slowed down as far as how much money it's making, but it already made enough in the very beginning of its release to be able to make its money back and make some profit. Bros is being completely rejected, not only by the audiences, but also by the studios, which are pulling this thing from theaters like it's a hot mess, because it clearly is a hot mess that no one wanted to go see. And regardless of what the people around, behind this movie might try to say, claiming homophobia and other things like that, the fact remains is that they made a movie that no one went to go see. And how do we know this? Because the numbers clearly tell us that. And so next time when you spend and waste $30+ million on a movie, and your main selling point is identity politics, good luck with that, and maybe second think that before, give that a second thought before you actually pull the trigger on that actual project. A couple other updates too. Top Gun Maverick continuing to hang around, though it is essentially out of theaters for the most part, not making $1 million a weekend anymore, but this film has been out for 21 weeks or so that is not all that surprising. DC League of Super Pets is finally indeed being pulled from theaters, and it did cross the $200 million mark, so it was able to do that and pull that feed off, but because of a much larger than what it should have been budget, the film will end up being a box office financial loss and failure. Looking over at the box office tracking, we have over on my website, ombreviews.com, as you can see, $58.4 million for Halloween Ends. $20 million budget, $50 million therefore was its break-even point, because films need to make just about 2.5 times their production budget to break even. It means that right now it's sitting at around $5 million in net gain profits. So kudos to Halloween Ends for being able to pull that off. La La Crocodile, as you can see, is right now at $59 million in the red, and based off of the projections, I'm projecting this film to be a loss of somewhere between $52 and $43 million when all is said and done. Not nearly as bad as Amsterdam, which is expected to lose somewhere between $104 and $97 million, meaning the average is going to be roughly $100 million. So we haven't seen one of these in quite a while. Warner Brothers is normally the studio behind it. It's interesting to me that when you look at studios like Disney and like Warner Brothers that tend to spend and overspend on their projects, even from smaller labels, right? Sub-brands, basically, like 20th Century Studios is for Disney. The fact is that when you overspend and those projects don't make any return on your investment, the question is then asked, why are you continuing to waste this money, right? You can only have so many millions of dollars be a tax write-off before you have yourself a bit of a problem. But Amsterdam, not in a very good position there. As you can see, Smile was projected to make a lot of money, and I had projected Bros to be a financial loss and financial failure. Don't Worry, Darling was a film I said could be a loss, right? There's definitely a chance that if it had, all the wheels fall off of it, that a loss was possible. But I also said that the more likely chance is that it hits its break-even point and maybe makes just a little bit of actual profit. As you can see, at this point in time, at $78.2 million, it's only $5.5 million in the red. So this film absolutely is still early enough in its release to where it only needs to make about $1 million or so a week worldwide for just a few more weeks, and it'll probably make a little bit more than $1 million a week for the next couple of weeks. Even with the release of films like Black Adam next week, which is going to, of course, shake up the box office from from the sleep that it's kind of been dominating the box office for the last several weeks, as it's the next major box office blockbuster to be released. But the fact is that it's only at $5.5 million in the red based off of the numbers that we've been given. So the chances of this film making its money back are actually a lot higher than some might expect. And so I know that there are people out there who say you're wrong on that. It's like, well, the numbers are very clear, and it was able to pull in a decent amount of money from last week. And even though law of diminishing returns, it's going to continue to get cut in half. Again, it leaves it without a lot of room to be able to hit that number. The chances of it doing so is still very much on the actual table itself. Woman King, this is one that I mentioned previously as well, $76.5 million right now. Means it's $29 million in the red. So it's already more than doubled what it made in its first 2 weeks. That's what that 49% actual means. That means compared to its first 2 weeks, right now, the first 2 weeks account for half of what it made. So it's been able to double that, and it's continuing to make money, have very small holds, very small drops and strong holds from week to week. As you can see right here from the full chart, Woman King only dropping 29%. And clearly the studio is having some confidence in it. 5 weeks out, it's only dropped from 777 screens is a lot. But the fact that it's still at over 2,500 screens and only making about 3.7 million because of those drop-offs being as strong as they are, right? Very small drop-offs for films like this. It's showing us very clearly that there are still enough people going out to support this movie, buying the propaganda surrounding it. And it's sad to see, but hey, I'm going to always talk about the films and talk about the numbers the way that they actually are, and not the way that I necessarily want them to be. And if I do, I always try to make that as clear as possible. Amsterdam, though, in a second week, dropping 55%, so set to be a massive flop. Even though Lyle Crocodile had a very small drop comparatively, 35%, the fact is that its opening weekend was not all that impressive, and so the chance of it making money is not very high, though of course, anything could happen. This film could end up having strong holds from week to week to week, but ultimately it just doesn't seem like a film that is garnering a lot of attention. With Black Adam coming out next weekend, that's going to kind of dominate, and I would not be surprised to see some of these films that have been having strong holds see some massive drops. As you can see, Don't Worry Darling made $2 million this weekend, only dropping 38%, and so the fact that 4 weeks out, it's still making around $2 million a weekend, and it's still making probably a couple million when you add in all the weekdays together, at least, you're looking at why I suspect that this film, and that's just domestically, why this film has a very good chance of hitting its own break-even point. Barbarian still hanging around. Bros, though, dropping 57%. And again, only 3 weeks out, but Universal, this is the big key. 3 weeks out, and it's pulled from over 1,000 screens. That shows that Universal has no confidence in this movie whatsoever, and that's why this film will end up being a financial flop for them. And hey, it's good to see films like that fail, because it shows that some audience people are still out there smart enough to say, oh, you're trying to sell me on a political point rather than trying to tell me a good story, good fun story, and entertain me. I'm going to go ahead and pass on that. It doesn't always happen, but when it does happen, I do have to point it out. So those are the numbers as they stand. What are y'all's thoughts? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, the fire button, Odyssey, and also smash the rumble button as well. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.